have been learning to live together. To be together physically is easy and manageable. But to be together psychologically and share life is extremely difficult. As long as our likes and dislikes, our crystallized preferences and prejudices, our norms and criteria, and such other divisive forces control our perceptions and regulate our responses. We are busy, we get busy, we remain preoccupied, evaluating, comparing, judging one another, criticizing one another. And when we, say 40, 50, 60 people, inwardly are preoccupied with such divisive forces, naturally a homogeneous atmosphere, a holistic atmosphere doesn't get created. We are the world. What is happening in the world outside might have happened or can happen in a small group of 60 or 70 people. In order to share life, not to coexist physically, but to create a festival of togetherness, to share the joy, it is necessary, is it not, to learn to relate with one another without comparing, evaluating, criticizing and judging. Obviously, when we have responsibility and we function with collective responsibility, we might have to compare notes, exchange views, share responsibility, arrive at certain decisions. But apart from that evaluatory activity, to be able to relate to one another, to listen to one another, to look at one another in a non-comparative and non-evaluatory way, a perception free of judgment, psychological judgment, perception free of value judgment, that is something we have to learn together. The whole human race has to learn it if the human race wants to survive on this planet. So I hope such experiments in living together will enable us to educate ourselves in living and sharing life. We have to learn to share the resources of the planet. We have to learn to share the talents of one another, excellences of one another. There is so much to share. But the divisive forces, separative forces, do not allow us to become a homogeneous whole. You know, what we call life is a homogeneous wholeness. Reality, the essence of reality, the divinity or the essence of divinity is a wholeness. It's an organic wholeness. It's not parts assembled together. It's not parts integrated together, synthesized together. As you build up a motor car, or an aeroplane or a rocket. It's an organic wholeness. What is organic wholeness? Well, you cannot divide life as whole and its parts. The parts do not exist outside of the whole. They cannot be separated from the wholeness. Every part contains the whole. So, life is an organic wholeness where we exist as sub-wholes, sub-totalities, related to one another intrinsically, inwardly. One is not talking about manipulated relationships through economic, political structures, etc. One is talking about the organic interrelated. So, when we say that life is an organic wholeness, it implies that it is indivisible. You cannot divide. For the sake of understanding, for the sake of verbal convenience, you may talk about parts of life. But life exists even in the tiniest particle of matter, and in a drop of water, life exists in totality. It seems to be a field for innumerable energies to act upon one another, to interact, and then manifest themselves in various shapes and colors and objects and forms. So life is a wholeness. Whether you call it universe, multiverse, cosmos, or some super cosmic reality, it seems to be an organic wholeness where everything or every being is intrinsically, organically related to one another. It is indivisible. It is intrinsically interrelated. And it has an intrinsic order, orderliness. Life is not chaos. The cosmic energies do not move chaotically. There seems to be a supreme intelligence built in the wholeness of cosmos, the wholeness of life. And that supreme intelligence manifests itself in an orderliness. The behavior of the mountains towards the forests, the forest towards the rains, the relationship between the oceans surrounding the earth, the relationship between the sun, the moon, the solar systems, the law of gravitation. All these seem to be manifestations in the form of an orderliness which is the result of a supreme intelligence. This has not been created by man. The intrinsic interrelatedness and interrelationship and orderliness that we see in the cosmic energies is not the creation of human thought, human mind, human effort. It is self-generated. It is self-sustained. And that which is not touched by human thought and hand is called divine. The word God is not the reality God. The word divinity is not the content. The word only represents the reality. So life is divinity, if you would allow me to use that term. Not the man-made gods and temples and churches and mosques and synagogues. They are only symbols representing the reality. Let us not mistaken the symbol for the reality. Let us not mistaken the word for the reality. The word, the concept, the symbol, which are necessary, which are human creations, they only represent the reality. Reality exists independently of the word. So life seems to be an indivisible organic wholeness, where every being is related to every other being. Let us not be arrogant enough to call any being as a thing. Even the earth is a being full of innumerable energies. A tree is a being. They are not objects created for the sake of human pleasure, subservient to human desires, wishes. The mountains, the trees, they are beings. They are full of energies, creative energy. They are beings as much as you and I. So, that's why one did not say everything is related to everything else. One says every being is related intrinsically, organically to every other being. So we are all fellow beings sharing the planet, the life. So what is living? Living is, it's a harmonious movement of energies contained in you with the energies operating outside of you. Somebody has asked me, what is the purpose of life and living? The purpose of life is not outside life. When you say that the purpose of life is to seek God, you are presuming a divinity or godhood outside of life. And then you divide life into spirit and non-spirit, matter and mind. You divide life into mundane and religious, spiritual and worldly. The purpose of life is not outside the act of living. The act of living is the highest worship that one can offer to the being of reality, to the divinity. So, living is harmonious movement of energies contained in us with the energies operating outside of us. And we have to learn how to harmonize the energies within us and how to relate harmoniously to the energies outside of us. Now the few minutes that we have been together, we have eliminated the imaginary division between inanimate and animate. I hope you have seen, or you are seeing, the implications of what is being said along with the speaker. When you say that it's a homogeneous whole, then you do not divide life in your mind as animate or inanimate. Would you call a particle of matter inanimate? A unit of mineral inanimate? It contains energies as much as you contain. What can you call inanimate in this cosmos when everything is full of energies? And that also, the ratio of energy to the mass and weight and size and shape of the atom, the electron, the proton is unpredictable. When the dance of innumerable energies cannot be arrested and imprisoned in the framework of human logic and mathematics. So, we are getting rid of this classical division of reality into animate and inanimate, matter and spirit, matter and mind. Life is a field containing the eternal dance of innumerable energies. And when we say that the purpose of living, the purpose of life is not outside of life, we are getting rid of another illusion that God as a creator of the universe is outside of the universe, somewhere apart from the universe, sitting there to dish out rewards and punishments, to decide who is going to hell and who is going to heaven, and who is a sinner and who is a saint. Don't we have all these notions? At the very foundation of our consciousness, we carry illusions. And then the perceptions get polluted and responses get distorted, twisted. So in this camp for holistic living, we have been busy all these days purging the consciousness, purifying the consciousness at its very foundation, so that perceptions will be purified and responses will have an equilibrium and equipoise, so that there will be a new dynamics of human relations. We haven't come here just to spend holidays or vacation. We have come here on behalf of the human race to explore an alternative holistic way of living. And we begin at the very foundation. Now, if that is clear, then in the time of self-education in such camps here or in any other country, we learn to create first a harmonious whole of energies within us. Then we will have to deal with the energies of the man-made world. The man-made world, through civilization and culture, has created numberless structures, and every structure has its own energy. The economic structure, the political structure, the educational structure, the world of literature, fine arts. First, we have to be a harmonious wholeness, not torn within, not divided within, not fragmented within. Our energies, the physical, the psychological energies, they will have to grow into a harmonious wholeness. The conflicts, the tensions, the contradictions, the disharmonies, the disorders between the physical and the psychological will have to be wiped out. This is what is education. And then the energies of the man-made structure and how to move harmoniously with them, and then the energies in the whole cosmos and how to move harmoniously with them. You see the triple responsibility. Living is a harmonious movement of the energies within with the energies without. So how do I harmonize the energies within me? First of all, I do not separate the body from the mind. As on the cosmic level, we discovered that you cannot divide life into spirit and matter, animate or inanimate. We cannot divide life here in the form of human body as body and mind, calling body the matter and mind the non-matter. Don't we presume that? The mind is something all full of energy and the body is matter. That division has to be got rid of, basically, fundamental. What you call mind is the subtlest part of your physical body, and what you call body is the grossest crust. As the bread has a crust, the physical body or the physical structure is the crust of what you call mind. So the mind and body cannot be separated. They are not divided. They are not two different entities. They are organic components or constituents of a whole that you call yourself. So, the energies in the so-called body and the so-called mind, we will go into it later on, have to be harmonious. In the body, you have the energy of impulses. Sex is an impulse. Every biological structure has got it. Non-human species have got it. And the human species also have got it. Appetite is an impulse. Thirst is an impulse. Sleep is an impulse. And every impulse has tremendous energy. The biological organism nourishes itself, sustains itself through the movement of impulses. To relate the impulse of sex, the impulse of appetite and all other impulses with our responsibility of functioning as members of society, members of global human family, is there with us. So, we get acquainted with the biological impulses. Not saying that they are lower impulses and the thoughts are higher and then your love and compassion are still higher. Not the hierarchy. No division, no hierarchy, no gradation. Life in its totality is sacred. Life in its totality is divine. Sex is as divine as your meditation. If we know how to relate the sex energy to the totality of our life and the life of the cosmos around us. It is our misuse or lack of capacity to relate the sex impulse and sex energy to the wholeness of our life that creates troubles. No energy is to be suppressed and no energy is to be treated or used as a means to pleasure. Of course, the exercising of energy will give pleasure. We are not denying pleasure. Sensual pleasure, sexual pleasure, they are the wealth of life. Only when they are part of the whole. When the part identifies itself and gets equated to the whole and consumes all your energy, consumes all your time, attention, demands it exclusively, then it creates what we call problems, conflicts, etc., etc. So first, we get acquainted with the body. With great reverence, affection, care and concern, and provide it with what it needs. Appetite has to be satisfied decently, healthily, sanely, in an orderly way. Do you see how your relation to food and diet will change? Then the diet and food does not remain only as an object of pleasure, but it's a responsibility, a joyous responsibility to feed, to nourish the body, to exercise the body, to sleep the body, to feed the body, so that the energies remain alert, supple, pliable. Then one nation does not consume the resources of the planet to such an extent and create a standard of living that the rest of the world starves. This is not the time to elaborate upon it, but I hope you will correlate what is being said to the so-called world problems. Our problems are the problems of the world. We are the world. Condensed world, condensed cosmos. And if one can resolve the problems here psychologically, one can resolve the problems in one's living, the movement of relationship, we will get the clue to world peace. We will get the clue to an alternative culture and civilization. Somewhere it has to be seen and lived. Then only it can become global, universal. So the relationship to the body gets reorganized completely. You know what is education? Education is reorganizing misdirected, misplaced things, things given out of importance which is out of proportion, you replace them. Education is reorganizing what is already existing. Eliminating disorder is creating order. Eliminating ignorance is creating intelligence. Do you see what a spiritual inquiry implies? Spiritual inquiry is really an unconditional worship of the totality of life. Totality of life, mind you. If that is done, then you turn to the so-called mind. We take care of the impulses and energies of impulses and correlate them to the wholeness of life. And from there, the outer crust, we move a little inward. And we have the energies of instincts, trends, aptitudes. That's the part of our inheritance. Inheritance from the family, inheritance from the whole human race. Now this energy of instincts, tendencies, etc. cannot be separated from the energy of thought, knowledge, experience. They are woven together. For the sake of study, you may call them subconscious, unconscious, conscious, etc. But they are a whole, and they operate as a whole. It's not that the conscious operates at one moment, and then the subconscious operates at another moment. When they move together. So now we are turning to the energies contained within, from the gross to the subtle part of the body, and the subtle energies. Now, when the energy of instincts or trends, the energy of thought, knowledge, or experience moves, what is moving? We have been learning here to observe last year and this year. To observe the movement of energy within. When you sit down quietly, you are educating yourself to observe. And I hope you have observed what happens to you when a thought moves in you. A movement of a thought or an emotion or sentiment is a neurochemical movement. Or when you look at something, when you perceive something, the act of perception is a neurochemical movement. The nervous system and the chemical system, they move together. Sometimes the movement begins with the chemical system and reach over or spill over to the neurological, and sometimes it starts with the neurological and spills over or extends itself to the chemical. When it begins with the neurological, you call it thought. And when it begins at the end of the chemical system, you call it emotion. Please do see that the thoughts and emotions are not separate energies. There's just one energy. But the energy operating at different ends, beginning at different ends. So when we say the mind moves, it is the neurochemical system that is moving. It is worth learning to observe all this. Have you seen the movement of thoughts affecting your breathing system? Have you observed worry and anxiety affecting your blood pressure? Have you seen how fear affects your pulse rate? The neurochemical system spreads over your whole being. It starts there and permeates the whole being. So the mental movement is the movement of these energies, energy of thought, knowledge, experience. And the energy of thought, knowledge, and experience, how do you recognize that? It moves with the word. A thought is never there without a word. An emotion does not move without a word. So the words are the conductors and conveyors of thought, knowledge, experience. So it's the energy of the word, verbalization. Knowledge, thought, experience, memory, all that can be reduced to the movement of verbalization, the movement of words. And these words are given to us by inheritance and then given to us since childhood by society, etc. So it is a conditioned energy. What I am trying to share with you is the neurochemical movement is a conditioned movement. The neurochemical system is programmed to respond to certain words in certain ways. The words, the patterns, the ideas, the symbols, everything is fed into you. Your plasma carries the impression of those words. The hollowness of the marrows of the bone carry the impression. So, the movement of mind is movement of the neurochemical system. The movement of neurochemical system is the movement of total human past. We have been conditioned and programmed systematically through centuries to relate to words, relate to ideas, respond to them in peculiar ways. You write the word or utter the word God. You write G-O-D, letters written in a sequence. We have been programmed neurochemically to react to the sequence of these letters in a particular way. The word God is not God. The word represents the reality. We are not bothered about reality. We have been programmed to react to the word. So the moment you read the word, there is a movement in the neurochemical system. One way in Catholic country, another way in a communist country. Do you see? So it's the conditioned energy. This conditioned energy was a necessity. You cannot escape it. You cannot go back from civilization and culture and this marvelous complex heritage of knowledge and experience. It's not worth throwing. It's not worth discarding. It's not worth worshipping also, but it is worth seeing for what it is, understanding its mechanism, and handle it in a harmonious way. That's what you know, that's what you do with the conditioned energy of mind. As you do with the energy of impulses, now you have the responsibility to relate the movement of conditioned energy, the movement of mind with the movement of cosmos. In a way, we are summing up what we have been doing for the whole week. If I am not tiring you too much, please take a few more steps with me this morning. What we call the neurochemical movement or the thought movement is a movement of ideas, ideologies, concepts and symbols. Political ideology, economic ideology, religious ideology. They are moving in you and me. And we have equated our whole life with those ideas, ideologies, symbols, concepts. We have equated the totality of life with the known, the experienced, the inherited, the conditioned. And therefore, We are divided. If you sit in a corner of your room and look at yourself, what do you call yourself? Call yourself an Italian, a Catholic, a Polish, a communist, a Hindu, an Indian, capitalist, socialist, communist. You see, this conditioned energy has divisive forces. What you call the thought, what you call knowledge, it contains divisive forces. We are divided. The human race is divided. Divided to such an extent that we are not satisfied only with geographical boundaries. France ends here, Switzerland begins there, and Germany begins there. Not for the convenience of social behavior, but here in the psyche we are divided. We are fragmented. We cannot look upon ourselves as a human being, member of the global human family. We have our tiny little spheres of identification, geographically, emotionally, intellectually, in the name of religion, exclusive loyalties, and that creates inward rigidity, inward inner stiffness. That's what's happening between Iraq and Iran, Shias and Sunnis, Arabs, Palestine, Israel, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Russia, Ireland, England. You see, the psyche is divided. And we have to create a harmony, energy of harmony within the psyche. Biologically you can create. The whole human race can turn to yoga and holistic nutrition and holistic medicine. They will take to it because they see their traditional systems and disciplines collapsing. The external, the peripheral, there will be no problem. The human race doesn't suffer from death wish collectively. So somehow they will dodge nuclear war, they will dodge pollution, and they will take the peripheral approach. But the crux of the issue is the content of psyche. The crisis is there. The quality of human consciousness, the content of human consciousness. So we will realize as spiritual inquirers that the conditioned energy of thought contains a number of divisive forces, and we should not succumb to them. We should not be victimized by them. The mind, the thought, is not the supreme authority. As the impulses were a part of our being, thought also is a part of our being, but it need not be the source of perception. It need not be the regulating force of our behavior, our responses. This is what will happen to the spiritual inquirer, a student of holistic living, and he will reorganize the relationship with the thought, the knowledge, the memory, the experience. No pride, no vanity, no racial superiority, no ideological superiority. In the name of anything at all. Economic, political, cultural, educational. All conditionings are equal. So we reorganize our relationship with the known, with the conditioned energy. Operating in the universe and yourself comes to an end. There is meditation. then you begin to live holistically. The divisive forces are no more the source of perception. The forces of separation and fragmentation are no more operative. They are lying there dormant. They are not destroyed because nothing can be destroyed. But they are no more the source from which perception takes place. No more the origin of responses that take place. So you have a new quality in your relationship with people. A holistic perception and a holistic response. What is love but a holistic perception? And what is compassion if not a holistic response? Movement out of your wholeness. That's what is love, obviously. So here, in this beautiful Vilaira, we met together, we lived together, rather we are learning to live together, and exploring together an alternative way of living, where fragmentation doesn't torture the psyche. Divisions do not haunt the psyche, where there is the perfume of the awareness of wholeness of life. One had hoped that one would not make one's audience work hard on the last day, and yet it has happened. This was a camp for self-education in holistic living. Education begins with perception and culminates in relationship. So in meditation, a person is reborn and begins to live as a nucleus of cosmic energy, a living cell of cosmic energy. The conditionings are not destroyed. Please do see. The wholeness does not destroy the parts. The wholeness manifests itself through the parts or the sub-wholes. And the creativity contains the conditioned energy to be used if and when and where necessary. When you live in samadhi or meditation, are you going to throw away all the beautiful classical music, the paintings, the sculpture, the literature, calling all production of thought, throw it away? Are you going to do that? Then your body itself is a product of conditionings. Are you going to throw that away? The creativity contains, does not deny. The present never denies the past. It contains it. It seems to me that we are not the only ones who are exploring in this way. Our fellow human beings, perhaps in all the countries of the world, feel concerned about renewal of individual and social life and restructuring reorganizing the economic, the political life. The concern is felt in the communist countries as much as it is felt in the non-communist democratic countries. And the flaring up of divisive and separative forces in the form of religious fanaticism or fundamentalism is perhaps the last phase of their existence. With the emergence of holistic consciousness, divisive forces cannot exist. They cannot coexist with the awareness of wholeness. They get dissipated. They get weakened. They lose their grip on the psyche of the human race. You know, that's the logical consequence of education. With the emergence of awareness of the wholeness, the unity of life, the divisive, the separative, the old, the traditional loses the grip on the psyche. Isn't that for what you send the children to schools? Isn't that for which we come to such camps? So meditation, which is the content of psychic mutation, is being born anew into a different dimension of consciousness altogether. Political power has not taught it. The military power has not taught it. Money has not brought it about. So we will have to learn in individual and group life, collective life, how to live harmoniously with one another. And if the conditioned energy of thought cannot help us in that sphere, what do? Please do see this. This is going to be a very urgent challenge for not only for you and me, our children. They have to live with the electronic era. They have to live with the computerization, ever-growing computerization of economic, political, educational life. They have to live with biotechnology. They have to live much more with machines and intelligent machines, thinking machines. And perhaps the fifth or the sixth generation of computers would have also sensitivity. You know what they are doing in Japan with the sixth generation now already of computers? Creating innumerable short circuits. They want to introduce a kind of sensitivity in the computers. Something serious. They are, with the genetic engineering in USA, they are playing with something very serious and very subtle aspect of our life. So our children, for them, it is necessary to learn how to live with the manipulated order, mechanistic and repetitive order of the machines, so that our brain does not get damaged and retains its creativity and sanity. Otherwise, the human brain will become another robot living with the machines, relegating more and more responsibility to the machines and remaining a passive, idle consumer of the electronic era. So, the exploration of an unconditioned energy within us is a global challenge. There is no choice for you and me. We cannot afford to avoid this. It's a choiceless challenge with which we are confronted. It's no more this personal wish that I will find out what is beyond thought in order to get liberated and enlightened. If there is any enlightenment and liberation, the whole human family has to go through it. Like scientific investigations and discoveries in technology, this exploration of a new psychic dimension is a historical challenge. It's a choiceless challenge. There is no option. Please do see it. So as an inquirer, after having created harmony at the level of biological impulses and learned to handle the conditioned energy in a harmonious way, I turn to the question, what is beyond? Is there organically related to the cosmos? Therefore, there must be creativity here too. I am not outside the cosmos. If the earth, the trees, the mountains, the oceans, the rivers, the beams of sunshine, if they contain creativity, obviously there must be creativity within the human body also. The healing power, the creative energies. So now how do I have an access to the cosmic creativity within my body? Please do see this. It's a very interesting thing. Spiritual inquiry is not turning away from life. It's not withdrawing from life. It is plunging into the totality of life. So I say to myself, obviously, the movement of conditioned energy cannot put me into the proximity of the unconditioned energy. As long as the neurochemical system is moving, as long as the thought structure is moving within me, the conditioned energies are moving within me, they will move in patterns, channels, grooves created for them, used by them generation after generation. So, this neurochemical movement or this movement of thought or the mental movement is absolutely of no use for further exploration. By observation, by study, by investigation, an inquirer has to come to this fact. If this remains an idea, ideas have no dynamism. It has to be the inquirer's first-hand personal perception that conditioned energies have no creativity. They are repetitive, they are mechanistic, and that has a utility.